Oh, we're live. That was quick. What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and typically I am critically analyzing apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. But tonight, we are interviewing Volsi from the Volsi Thoughts channel, both on YouTube and on TikTok. And he is one of our MCs for the Rocket City Reason Conference. If you don't know what that is, there will be a link down in the description for rocketcityreason.com. I need to put that in there here in a minute, but there will be a link down there for rocketcityreason.com. You go there. It's a conference that we are holding this year, October 23rd through 25th. Volsi is going to be one of our MCs, introducing panels and really just sort of making it a very wholesome and nice event for everybody to attend this year. And we really appreciate you being the MC this year there, Volsi.
Hey man, I appreciate y'all for, considering me and inviting me. I've been, doing this for maybe, I would say, a year now. I've been doing content creation. Trying to be in this realm, in this sphere of talking to the community that I've seen. I followed ever since I deconstruction and deconverted. I followed the atheist community in Austin. You were one of the first people I followed as well. You know what I mean? So I said, man, one day I want to talk to Godless Engineer, and one day I want to talk to Black Atheist Rants and Mandisa Thomas. Those were people I also followed. I'm hoping one day I can meet Matt Dillahunty, because he's the one who really got me into it, and Tracy Harris as well. She's another wonderful person that got me into it. So ever since I deconverted and started watching the ACA and started getting really into this content, I was like, there's a whole community here, a whole community of people who are actually wholesome and know what they're talking about and are just really nice people all around, not necessarily, debate me, bro, you guys are all stupid people, but we do have debates. I love having those, but it's more of, this is why what you're saying is wrong, and this is why what you're saying doesn't make sense philosophically or socially or anything like that, or morally. I've always loved those type of discussions rather than trying to put people down, and I'm just excited. I kind of rambled there for a few minutes, but I am excited to be part of here, and I appreciate you for having me here. Appreciate it.
No, I mean, this is specifically a stream for you to ramble. I want to hear you ramble. Yeah, and fun fact though, I think we're trying to get Matt out to Rocket City Reason this October, so that might actually come true for you. It really kind of depends on Matt's situation, because he has another side business with reptiles and stuff. So it's just a matter of whether or not they can actually facilitate that that particular business, making sure they have everything covered there. So that might actually happen. But what I want to know tonight from you, Volsi, starting off first is, I do have everything linked down below in the comments and everything, but why don't you kind of introduce yourself to everybody, tell them about yourself, what you do over there on your channels, and what you're doing in the community at large.
Oh yeah, definitely. So on my channel, I host basically a debate and discussion show called Bring That Smoke. It's kind of from our community. Anytime someone wants to have some sort of argument or fight over something, we'll be like, all right, you gotta bring that smoke to me then, because I want it. I want all the smoke. Go ahead and bring it. So over on my channel, I do discussions on religion and politics. I've found myself that the less religious I got, the more to the left of politics that I became. Now, that's not necessary for everybody. Of course, we do know that there are people who are non-believers but skew more to the right for their own personal reasons. I personally don't. So that's what I do my discussions and debates on. I've also done reflection videos, commentary, things of that matter. I've done a few reactions. I did a reaction to someone reacting to Alex O'Connor, so that was a fun one to do. These are some of the things that I do on my channel, at least, and I am going to expand because I'm a person that's studying clinical mental health counseling. So I want to start expanding out to speaking about things such as masculinity, speaking to young men, about, getting into a healthier view, a healthier thought pattern of what it means to be a man in our society, how gender performance in our society doesn't necessarily need to be toxic dominance. I think a lot of our young men need that, which is why if you ever stay to the end of my streams, you always I always end my stream off by saying that every man should be soft. And what that means that every man should be secure, affectionate, wise, flexible, and thoughtful. That's how my father taught me on how to be a man. So I think that should be for, I want to spread that message to everybody else. So that's how I end off my streams. And I want to one day talk about positive masculinity as soon as I get my license and I'm a therapist, that I can actually help people out in that way pro bono, and as far as out in the community, I'm part of an organization called Black Men Build. I just actually came from the meeting with them as well. We had some leadership training with Black Men Build. What we're doing, we're organizing with Black men and their families in order for advocacy, direct action, political education within our community. Something that is very, very important. Being Black in America is politicized a lot, so we have to be involved in politics. So that's one thing I do with them. And once I become a counselor, I'm going to be offering my services pro bono to them as well. I do know that there's grief beyond belief and within the atheist community. I've been through grief before, like recently. I have a cousin who passed away. She was only 30. You know what I mean? And I'm pushing 40. So when I was like around 8 years old, I held her as a baby, and I had to see her pass away. Something very difficult to deal with. Very difficult to deal with. And I noticed that my religious family, they have a comfort of saying, I'm going to see her again, and I don't have that comfort. I know that the last time I saw her at our family reunion is literally the last time I saw her cognizant, like be there. You know what I mean? One of the last things she did with me is give me a hug. She was in a hospital bed, slowly passing away from her cancer. And when she saw me there, she said, "Oh, big cousin," and she gave me a hug. That was the last thing she did for me. And that's the last memory that I have of her, basically, when she's cognizant, when she knows who I am. Every other time she was just in pain and she didn't know who was around her. But I want to be one of those people that, help other folks understand or take them through the process of their grief without, having them necessarily pray to a man in the sky who we don't know is there or not, So that's some of the things that I do on my channel and within the community as well.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear about that. I hate that for both you and your cousin. It really sucks to, know somebody that passes away that early in life. So I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I do commend you though for going into the therapy field, because I think that's one thing that's pretty overwhelmed by religious therapists out there. I know here in North Alabama, it's hard to find a secular therapist, to the point where Recovering from Religion actually has the Secular Therapy Project, where it'll list off the therapists in like your state. And it's like here in North Alabama, there was like 2, maybe 3 therapists that were on the list, like for the whole of North Alabama. So it's like, I think that it's pretty overwhelming, the amount of religious influence in that area. And I think that when people treat mental health with religion, I think that all that does is allow it to fester and get worse, and it can cause some pretty bad reactions. But I commend you for going into that field, and I mean I can't wait for you to get started on that kind of work there. But let's start out now talking about, like, what did religion look like for you growing up, like when you were a kid? And I guess what I'm thinking is, like, were you deeply involved in the church? Were you part of youth groups? Did you do missionary work, that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, man. Let me tell you, a lot of times what happens is that every single time I've spoken to a person who's a Christian, I'm pretty sure you've gotten it before. Oh, you hate God. You know what I mean? The church hurt you, everything like that. With me, they cannot use that excuse at all. You know why? Because My fondest memories from childhood, my best memories from childhood, the ones that I still cherish to this day, are from church. All of them. My church was such a community. Like I loved it. I loved being in church. And the thing is, it is and I understand that I have the kind of the privilege to say that, right? Because I kind of hit the lottery as a Christian. I'm a cisgender heterosexual male. That's number one. And number two, I was the pastor's son. You know, now that did come with a lot of pressure. I'm not gonna lie, like that, it wasn't all good and well. People did expect me to do a lot of things because I'm the pastor's son. There were mistakes that I made as a regular teenage boy that they didn't expect me to make because I'm the pastor's son. You know, so there was a lot of pressure there, but I'm pretty sure people who are, you know, who grew up in church that are like either part of the LGBTQ community or women who are unfortunately went through a thing of, you know, a man who wasn't good with children, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm pretty sure for them, they're not gonna say that it was a ball for them, of course. Like, and I appreciate that, and I'm never gonna take that away from them. It's just for me, like I didn't have a bad time. I wasn't church hurt or nothing. I was good. So I did one thing about Haitian churches. If you're a small to medium sized church, if you're a black church, at least almost every single youth person is going to be in the choir. Almost all of us. So that was the immediate thing. You know, if you're young, you're at least below 25, you're going to be in the youth choir. That's just automatically, you know. So what it's called in Haitian church is called la jeunesse, and la jeunesse means basically the youth. That's what it is. So we had the youth choir. We had our own section that was, the services were in English instead of Haitian Creole, because, you know, a lot of us were born here in America. Our Creole is not as good as our parents, so we got to do our section. We had like organizations, mission trips, and we did. I've been on mission trips to Houston. I've been on mission trips to Haiti. I've been on mission trips to New Jersey. There's lots of Haitians in Houston and in New Jersey. You'll be surprised. And around where I grew up in Miami, every Friday is when it's the Youth Friday. Like if you know anyone who's in Black church, that's the thing. Friday is the Youth Friday. You know, after school, everybody meets up at the church. You know, and of course, a lot of my childhood friends that I still have to this day, whether they live out of state or even if some of them who are in jail, I have a very interesting friend group. And those who just got out of jail, very interesting friend group. You know, so a lot of them, they're all from church. Literally all of them. All my friends that I have growing up, church, every single one. You know, and so that's why, like, it was never one of those things that was, I left because I was hurt. I left because, you know, someone did something to me in the church. It was never anything of that. It was purely an intellectual thing that I went through, that I deconstructed from. But yeah, church for me, like, I still remember Christmases, even to this day. I keep one tradition that I kept from my Christian upbringing is going to church on New Year's Eve. Every single 31st, I still go to my dad's church, not just to reunite with everybody that I knew, but also because January 1st is Haitian Independence Day, and there's a certain soup that we drink, a soup called soup jumu. And soup jumu is basically a celebratory soup because after we won our revolution from the French, we ate all of the fruit and the vegetables that the slave masters didn't allow the enslaved people to eat. So we take all the pork that they didn't let us eat, the squash they didn't let us eat, the pumpkin, everything like that. We put it all in the soup and we eat that to celebrate our freedom. So that's why I still go to churches on New Year's Eve. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that tradition because, you know, now I'm just, you know, whatever. I don't care. But just to, you know, reunite with, you know, my elder church people, my dad's friends, people who helped raise me. I still always just go back on the 31st. I don't mind doing it.
Yeah. Now, is that soup good?
It is very good. It is very good.
Okay.
Now, there's no Haitians in Alabama. I went over there for my jobs training. I went over there for because at my job we had to train in Birmingham earlier last year. So I went over there, and the first thing I looked for was Haitian restaurant. and it said none found in Uber Eats, none found in DoorDash. I tried Google it, none found. The nearest one was in Atlanta. I was like, I'm about driving 2 hours, So yeah. There's none over there, but hopefully, we'll set one up. If I ever get rich and famous, I'll set one up around your way.
No, yeah. So I actually come from a family in North Alabama that's actually known for taking in like Cuban immigrants, like people that were escaping Cuba back when there was a big immigrant or immigration from Cuba. They were trying to get out before like all the embargoes and everything like that got set upon Cuba, and so my family was pretty well known for taking in like Cuban immigrants, and we were my father's family was partially Puerto Rican, and so like we've got that kind of cultural background there. But it's very interesting to know that you have a Haitian background. Now, are both your parents like from that area, or like are you like sort of mixed with something some other ethnicity?
Yeah, both my parents are from Haiti. My dad is from Port-au-Prince, and my mom is from Port-au-Prince, and my dad is from Saint Mark. It's called Saint Mark. Yeah, Saint Mark. He's from Saint Mark, and my mom's from Port-au-Prince. They left around the time of the baby doc regime. That's when they left, around the 70s. That's when they came to the United States, around the late 70s, late 70s, early 80s. What's funny is that when my dad came, it was pretty much at the tail end of the Black Panthers. So when he came to Miami, he was like, who are these people with guns and afros running around? He didn't understand it at all. He's from another country. He didn't know what was going on. So he said, now years later, when I told him what it was, that's like, oh, I saw those guys. He didn't know what it was back then. But yeah, that's where they're from. They're from Haiti. We grew up Haitian, like Haitian community, all that. Like, and it's very rare. Like me, I'm a very rare specimen. For lack of a better word, because my parents, when they first find out that I deconstructed and I wasn't Christian anymore, my dad literally came to me and said, you cannot, being Haitian and being Christian are synonymous, but you cannot be Haitian and not be Christian. Like, it's impossible for you to do that. And that's how rare it is for someone who doesn't believe to be Haitian. And people that I've known around the Caribbean, I've spoken to, like, my fiance's Jamaican, right? Same thing with her. She says, yeah, her parents are big believers. And Jamaican community is huge believers. I mean, I've spoken to Cubans as well. Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Bahamians, people from Trinidad, Barbados. Same thing, all around the Caribbean. He said, if you're a Caribbean person, all they know is Christianity, maybe Rastafarianism. But even then, a lot of Rastafarianism is basically like a Christian offshoot. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's I'm a very rare person, basically.
I believe Rastafarianism is like it's a syncretism of Christianity and the native religious culture, right?
Yes, yeah. It's basically I've always said that if Christianity was allowed to spread into Africa like naturally, like grassroots, like not through the sword, it would look probably like Rastafarianism. That's probably the way it would look like, because the practices and the rituals they do, it goes back to Africa. So it will likely look like that, and we would probably won't be worshiping Haile Selassie, but Jesus would be more of an Africanized version than what we see today. I've always said that.
Right. And my wife actually gave me, we've got this doll. I don't know, you can't really read it, but it has a necklace on it that says Haiti. Did we get this for a donation that we did?
When we did the 800 pounds of peanut butter.
Oh yeah. So there's a video on our channel here where we I randomly heard on Facebook about this peanut butter drive for orphan kids in Haiti. And so what we did was we spent like a month going out to like different grocery stores and like getting like 2-for-1 deals and whatnot on peanut butter, and we ended up with like 800 pounds of peanut butter.
Awesome.
We ended up raising money here on the channel for people gave us money to go out and buy more peanut butter for them, and so we were able to. We loaded up the car. It was like 800 pounds. We had figured it up, and that's what we got. I guess as a thank you for such a large donation was this doll from Haiti. And that was one of our first charitable like donation things that we did. It was pretty awesome. Yeah. So given that in your background there, you had a pretty heavy, I guess, indoctrination into the religion. I know that you were pretty involved in everything. Oh wait, before I get there, I did have another thought while you were telling your story.
Sure.
Is there a lot of missionary work going on in like New Jersey and stuff? Like, do we really need, like, do churches really need to do missionary work out there? I guess I'm kind of curious, like when you do missionary work inside the United States, where it's like, 85% Christian of some kind, what kind of missionary work are you doing?
It's funny, right? Because it's like the missionary work that we do is more like being in a convention, and essentially we are like raising money, right? Like a lot of times you're raising money for a certain cause, either to help people, help somebody with rents, or buying certain things for their house, or paying a certain hospital bill. That's really what it boils down to. But a lot of it is based around a convention. So the conventions or the revivals are basically, you invite a whole, it's basically like a concert. Essentially, you invite the convention. Really, okay, I'll say like this. Sorry. All right. So there's the convention and a revival. The convention are all the churches within your organization. Essentially, my dad's organization was the New Jerusalem. Essentially, that's their organization. So there's a Mount Olive Church of God here in in Miami. There's Mount Olive Church of God up in Atlanta. There's one in Houston. There's one in Jersey, Philly, etc. In New York, there's one in Haiti. There's even one in France. You know what I mean? So that's Mount Olive Church of God. That's the MOCOG. That's that's the organization. The conventions are basically for that organization. The revivals are inviting other churches into your church. Yeah, I mean, that's what the revivals are. It's a little funny. But basically whenever we went on like the missionaries, it was all built around a convention. So all the churches would come together and raise money for a certain cause. And usually you're raising money for the cause of helping someone out, or raising money for a cause for us to take the actual mission trip, and that one's going to be in Haiti. Yeah, I mean, so those mission trips are where we go to like build a clinic or give out food and stuff like that. Those are the ones when I went to Haiti. That's what we were doing. We were giving out food. We were giving out clothes, giving haircuts to kids, giving them school supplies, paying for like 6 months of their school, stuff like that. So the churches that I was part of, the organization I was part of, they actually did work. They actually did good things. It wasn't Joel Oilsheen, I mean, just making millions of dollars from people. That's what it was. It was actual work, not sitting up there being a glorified motivational preacher, motivational teacher. Basically, that's what he does.
Joel Oilsheen. I like that. Well, I mean, that's great. I know my wife, KC, she was, her church did a lot of like really volunteer stuff, which is a lot different than what you hear from a lot of churches now. So I'm glad that you were able to take part in that. Considering that you were kind of like heavily indoctrinated, were you like really tied to your faith? I mean, I guess by comparison, when I was growing up, like I believed in God and everything like that, but I didn't have like a deep connection to my faith. And I'm just wondering if you kind of had that.
Yeah, I was one of those people that I was in one of those relationships where it was kind of codependent. I was too afraid to ask the questions, essentially. I was way too afraid to ask the questions, because one thing is that, I grew up learning or being indoctrinated with the fact that people who don't believe are not good people. You know, like there's something wrong with them. If they're not if there's not something wrong with them, like morally, you know, being bad people, let's say they could be all nice and everything like that. There's something wrong with them emotionally, like they have a broken thing in their mind or in their hearts that they can't feel the love of God and Jesus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's something broken there. You know what I mean? And that's what I grew up learning for such a long time. So when these questions would come up, one of the ways that they will shut it down like immediately is they would say, you're talking like a non-believer, essentially, or you're thinking like a non-believer. And when it's like that, it's like, I don't want to be a bad person or broken, so I just wouldn't ask the question. But the questions were still there because I was always a very, very inquisitive kid. Very, very inquisitive. I was always asking questions. I was always wondering, what exactly does this mean? What exactly is going on? This right here doesn't make any sense. And I think the thing that I immediately had an issue with, which is kind of funny, was Adam and Eve. I immediately had a problem with that. And it wasn't even, I didn't even know about genetics or anything yet. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about genetics. I didn't know about, you know, how interbreeding and incest leads to bad results. I was 7 years old. I didn't understand any of that. I was like, two people, they had two sons. One of them died, and the son finds a wife. So he married his sister. You know, I'm a 9-year-old kid, and I'm like, he married his sister. Like that didn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, one day I'm gonna understand, because that's what my parents always said. One day you'll understand. But then when I was like probably 11 or 12 years old, I ran into another issue. The story that they gave to me about Noah's Ark when I was 7, when I was 13, the story changed. When I was 7, they told me that Noah foresaw a flood, that God told Noah a flood was going to come. Then when I'm 13, it said that God sent the flood. So I'm like, all right, y'all, mom, dad, you know, pastors. When I remember when I was 7, y'all gave me a videotape, because back then, you know, I'm kind of aging myself. Back then we had videotapes. You know, we had VCRs, guys. Yeah, we have VCRs. For those who don't know, VCRs and videotapes were basically contraptions where you put in a little disc that was about this big into a contraption, and it played you a video. Like, that's what it was. You know, VCRs is such old technology, but we had that back then, right? And my mom used to make us watch that all the time, especially if she caught us watching The Simpsons. She would immediately put those videos on. So it was one of those things, right? I'm like, I remember from this kid's video that you showed me when I was 7, it said that Noah was foretold about a flood going on. It wasn't God sending it. I remember that vividly. And my parents were like, oh, maybe you're remembering wrong. Whatever. It doesn't matter. This is what the Bible says. I'm like, but y'all don't see that there's a problem there? Didn't y'all lie to me? You know, so didn't y'all lie to me? Because it's like, first y'all told me he just foresaw it. Now the Bible's saying that it was God who sent it. All right. And I was like, okay, maybe I could forget about that. Where'd the water come from? Where did it go afterwards? Where's the water coming from? Like, oh, you know, God opened the heavens to the waters. I'm like, okay, so the sky has water on it, but I'm 13. I know about planets at this point, you know. So where'd the water come from? Did God send a comet? These are the questions that I was asking myself, and I was like, you know what? I'm a kid who loves space science, and then I learned that comets are all made of ice. Boom, there's my answer. You know, God sent comets. You know what I mean? That because my family couldn't give me the answers, because the pastors couldn't give me the answers, I started seeking out answers for myself that made the most sense and fit in with this narrative. So I'm 13. I at this point I know about Pluto, I know about planets, I know about the comets. So if comets are all made of ice, boom, God sent comets, and that was the flood. That makes sense. Now I have to deal with Adam and Eve. Now, by the time I'm 14, I'm in 9th grade. I'm learning biology. And biology in high school, even in Florida, what are you going to learn? Evolution. You're going to learn about evolution. And by this time, when I was 14, amazingly, I know people grew up with this already, but Google first started when I was 14. It was brand new. Google was brand new. No one knew about Google. Not only no one knew about Google, Wikipedia came out. Wikipedia was brand new. You know what I mean? So now I'm having a whole new source of information. And then I reached the article in Wikipedia that was theistic evolution, basically God guided evolution. Now, I mean, I started reading about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this does make sense. All right, cool. So at this point, around 14, 15 years old, I'm like, okay, maybe Noah's Ark is not what they thought it was. You know what I mean? Maybe it's an allegorical thing. Maybe it's just a localized thing that got exaggerated. And maybe Adam and Eve, God was simply telling them something, but they didn't understand it. Maybe God was telling them, okay, this is how I did evolution, but they didn't understand it. So Adam and Eve are representatives of like the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens. This is the thought process I was going through. This is the thought process I was going through. I'm like, okay, if God is speaking to, early humans, they're not going to understand what, Australopithecus or Decanovans, they're not going to understand what that is. So of course they're just going to write Adam and Eve. That's what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? Until, of course, you run into problems. You run into problems as you get older. You meet people who take the Adam and Eve story seriously, literally, who take Noah's Ark seriously, literally, who take the Tower of Babel literally and seriously. And there is a whole bunch of problems there. Even when it comes to theistic evolution, there's a lot of issues there because Adam and Eve can't be true. And not only that, there's no first sin. If evolution is true, there's no first sin. So Adam and Eve can't be true. So at this point, I'm about maybe 17 years old. And I asked a question that I was afraid to ask myself, that popped into my head, that I was terrified of. And I didn't ask myself that question for years. What's the point of Jesus? If Adam and Eve wasn't true and didn't happen, there is no first sin. What's the point of Jesus? You know what I mean? That question registered in my head, but it terrified me. It terrified me. I did not want to ask that question to myself. So just like how a bunch of people do around that age, or who are deconstructing, who didn't start deconstruction yet, back of the mind. I threw it back there. I buried that question. I buried it for years. Years on it, and buried it. And I think that question didn't come up again until I was about maybe 27 or 28. But when I was about, I think I was about 19 or 20, I think what really kicked off my deconstruction is, funnily enough, I stopped going to church because when it comes to Haitian parents, right, the moment you're 18, they're going to say you're either going to go to school or you're going to join the workforce and start paying bills in the house. You're not going to sit back and take a year off and play video games. That's not what you're doing. You're going to do one of the two things. So I had to choose. I never had a job before, so I just went to school. I went to school. I'm 19, maybe 20 years old, and I need to join a humanities class. So I'm like, oh, for my major, I need to join a humanities class. Oh, philosophy. That should be an easy A. Philosophy. That should be an easy A. So I joined philosophy, and my philosophy professor asked me a question that I don't think I was ever asked before. He said to everybody he said, okay, everybody, we don't want to offend you in this class, but we're going to ask you to question everything, including your beliefs, including things that you grew up with. And, at that point, I'm on fire for Christ, right? I've preached before. My first sermon I preached was at 16 years old. I preached another sermon when I was 17. At 18, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be in a theology class. I'm going to go to I'm going to get my master's in theology, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to do all that. I'm on fire for Christ. And I'm up there, preaching the word. I'm like, okay, according to the Bible, this is true, and this is what's happening, and God said to do this, that, and the third, and this is what Jesus wants from us, Psalm 23, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm quoting things, all that good stuff, right? My philosophy professor is looking at me. He's like, all right, you've told me everything you believed. but you didn't tell me why you believe it. He said, you've told me everything that you do believe, but you haven't told me why you believe it. And I was stuck. I was stumped because I'm like, what do you mean why I believe it? This is true. And he was like, you sure? You told me everything you believed, but you haven't told me why you believe it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I've never thought of that. Never thought of that. And I think the moment he asked that question, all of the other questions I have from my youth popped up again. What was the point of Adam and Eve? Is Noah's Ark true? Tower of Babel, Jonah and the whale, Isaiah flying up to the sky like Superman. Why did this verse contradict that verse? You know what I mean? Who actually killed Goliath? Because I noticed that verse, right? I noticed that in one part it says David killed Goliath, but then it said that the brother of Zebedee killed Goliath. All of those, right? Contradictions popping back up in my head. Things that I threw to the back of my head a long time ago. All of them came back up. And I'm like, I need to go on this journey now. I need to figure out. I'm like, at this point, I know my religion is true, but there has to be answers to everything that I didn't get the answers to. There has to be answers. And that really kicked off the deconstruction journey from there. That kicked it off. I've been talking for like 15 minutes, bro. I'm sorry. This took over your whole channel.
No. I'm wanting to hear this. I'm wanting to hear the lore behind Volsi. So I'm intrigued by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
Because I mean that led right into my next question was like, what was the thing that kind of broke the straw that broke the camel's back? And it seems like it's pretty much just being challenged, on your beliefs, why you believe them. It kind of similar to me. Like I felt kind of lost. I didn't know what I believed. And I had a friend tell me, well, unless you believe this book from cover to cover, then you're not a true Christian. And it's kind of like tangentially to that. I was like, well, what do I believe? And then I started thinking about why I believe certain things. And so, I mean, it's a very similar path. So, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. And no, and the thing is, what's funny about this is that it happened. One thing, I remember two or three things, right? What's funny is that, remember, this is around the time where YouTube first came out. So I'm running into a lot of content, running into like, I think the first atheist person that I ever ran into and actually listened to what they had to say was, he's kind of fallen out of grace now, but two of them, Thunderfoot and The Amazing Atheist. Those were the two people. Yeah, they've kind of fallen out of favor now. But I know, guys, I don't want to start any controversy, but those were the two people that I first ran into when it comes to atheist content. Them two. And I actually listened to them. You know what I mean? And I was like, these guys are making good points. And Thunderfoot, being a scientist, he was able to clear up a lot of evolution things to me. A lot of like what creationism does, how creationism makes sense. And from there, that's when I ran into Aaron Ra. And Aaron Ra was just a beast. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay. And that's when I listened to the 15 foundational falsehoods of creationism. When I first heard those videos, I'm like, okay, wow, these are things that I can't refute. You know what I mean? I can't refute it, but I'm like, there has to be something that I got wrong. There has to be something that, there has to be something. There has to be something that they're wrong on. So I would watch videos of people responding to them, right? And I'm like, man, these nah, bro. At that point, I'm like, man, y'all respond to these people, but you're not responding. Nah, bro. I know you're wrong. At this point, like, I would look up what Aaron Ra and Thunderfoot and all of them had to say. I'll look up their responses to those people, but then I'm already, in my mind where I'm kind of trying to understand what this religion is and if it's right and everything like that. And I will look up to see these videos. I'm like, nah, he got this wrong. He got that wrong. And then those guys, either Thunderfoot or Aaron, will put out a response video, and they would say the exact same thing that I found. So it's like, I know I'm on the right track. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, something's wrong here. Something's wrong here. There has to be a reason for all this, right? So it reminds me of that saying, the internet is where religion goes to die. Around that time, new atheism came around, the Four Horsemen, everything like that, Daniel Dennett, Richard Hawkins, Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and Sam Harris. The Four Horsemen. Yeah, around that time is when that meme came out. The internet is where religion goes to die. I was afraid of that meme, terrified of that meme. Every time I saw it, it triggered me. I'm like, they're not gonna take away my faith from me. Nothing can shake my faith. I was one of those guys. So like, I have to do some more research. I have to find out exactly what's going on. You know what I mean? They're wrong somewhere. They have to be wrong. So my deconstruction journey was to actually prove atheism wrong, not to be an atheist, you know? So that's where it started off from. But the research that I was finding was more in line with what the atheists were saying than what the Christians were saying. So I'm like, of course, I'm afraid still. I'm afraid to believe it. But at this point, I haven't been to church for a while because, again, my parents either wanted me to be in school or go to work. However, I had to be at work too, right? Because my parents told me, listen, your car insurance, that's going to be on you. Your cell phone, that's going to be on you. You need to figure out a way to pay it. And your school loan's not going to pay it all off. So what are you going to do? I got to work, you know? Now, the job that I got, it made you work on Sundays because I was working front desk at a hotel. So or a condominium actually. So on Sundays, I had to go to work in the morning. You know what I mean? So either my schedule first started that I worked 11 to 7 at night. By the time Sunday morning came around, Saturday I'm working 11 to 7. So Sunday, you know, I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to church. You know, most times I'm not heading to. I used to start to head to church and then go home to sleep, but then I got to go to work again at 3 in the afternoon. You know, so it's like at that point, I just started skipping church. I couldn't do it. You know, I just started skipping church. But in my midst of skipping church, I'm online. I'm debating. I'm arguing with people. I'm researching. I'm, you know, reading Wikipedia articles because I couldn't afford to actually buy the books at that point until I was actually able to buy the God Delusion and everything like that. But I'm just reading, trying to find online resources. I was able to find, you know, answers in Genesis. But when I look at answers in Genesis, guess what? I'm finding YouTube videos that are responding to answers in Genesis, you know, and I couldn't refute the videos. And then Answers to Genesis would respond to those videos and they would respond back. I think that's how I really got into the whole debating sphere. That's how I really got into it because I would see people, you know, do that, right? And of course, I'm like, all right, man, there has to be something that sets me back. And of course, something did bring me back into, or almost brought me back into the fold. Unfortunately, I ran into race realists. I ran into those guys. And guess what? A lot of those guys, they weren't believers. You know what I mean? Which is why a lot of people will tell you being an atheist doesn't mean that you're going to think rationally. All it means is that, you know, you don't accept the God conclusion. That's all it means. When I ran into race realists and I saw a lot of them weren't religious, weren't Christian, that's when I was like, aha. You know, that's when the light went off in my head. Aha, being an atheist makes you racist. Aha. You know what I mean? So, you know, like, okay, atheism has to be a white thing because all of these racist people, they're all atheists, right? So boom, aha, that's what's gonna bring me back, right? But then of course the race realists, I saw debates with them too. And the people who were debating them, well, guess what? They weren't believers and they were putting belt to ass on them. You know what I mean? They were saying, all right, the research that Rushton and Jenkins they came out with is wrong because of this, that, and the third. IQ tests have these cultural issues. This test was made on 6-year-olds who are starving. These are not indicative of anything. There's a social issue here with America and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, okay, boom. So that means that being atheist doesn't necessarily make you a racist. These people are just racist. That's it. You know what I mean? And I think it had to come to a point. I had to ask myself a very, very important question. Very important question. Can you believe something without any evidence that is true? That's why if you ever seen my debates, I always ask the same question. If I told you I had $10 billion in the Bahamas to quit your job and I will give you $500 million, are you going to do it just because I say so? Of course, 80 to 90% of the Christians that I run into, they always say, well, I will need to know this. I will need to know that. I will need to know that. Which means what? You need evidence. You need evidence. You know, so I started to ask myself that question. Can I believe something without any evidence that is true? No, I can't. Like, I was always one of those kids that I came up with a reason to believe it. And a lot of my reasons had something to do with science, right? Now, it was pseudoscience because a bunch of comets hitting the earth and making it flood is kind of stupid. But, you know, we wouldn't be alive right now. But it was pseudoscience, but I'm trying to get there, you know? So you need hard evidence for me to believe something. That's something that I concluded with myself. But I also concluded something else. Another very important question, a very personal question. Do I need to believe this supernatural thing in order for me to have morals, in order for me to have drive, in order for me to have purpose in life? Do I need this to believe it? Do I need it? The answer was also no. So if there's no evidence that is true, can I believe it? No. Do I need it to live a good, righteous, moral life? Also no. Can't believe it anymore. Can't believe it more. I think that's how I let it go. Now, here's one thing I did keep. I didn't say, I'm not Christian anymore, but I'm very spiritual. You know, very spiritual. You know what I mean? The power of manifesting. The universe, you know, will answer you. You know what I mean? I'm like, even Carl Sagan was probably like me, right? Because he even said it. We're all made of stardust. We're all made of star stuff. You know what I mean? I took that Carl Sagan quote to heart until I found out that he was an atheist too. So it was one of those things. You know what I mean? But I'm like, but it came back to the question. I'm like, yo, is there evidence that the universe responds to you? Is zodiacs true? Or, you know, all this woo stuff, is all that shit true? Like, nah, bro. Like, manifesting it's bullshit.
Yeah. Did you ever think that like Mercury being in retrograde affected your attitude or something?
Yeah. I was on that kick. You know what I mean? I was on that kick. You know, the Saturn being in retrograde and, you know, and Mercury having, you know, looking at the sun in my fifth house of the star. I'm like, what is this? This is all stupid.
Oh yeah, that's why I stubbed my toe. Saturn was right there, and that's why.
That's why, yeah. A star billions of light years away. You know what I mean? Orion's belt is really affecting me right now, even though Orion's belt is not 3 stars in a row. They're like millions of miles apart. You know what I mean? But yeah, because of them, they affect me. Like, this is stupid. You know, I got to a point where I was like, bruh, this is dumb. Like, I didn't even need to deconstruct from that. I was just like, this is stupid. Like, what am I believing here? You know, this is dumb. You know, so once
Sorry, I do want to give you a little bit of credit with the asteroid thing, because, you know, like that is one of the hypotheses for how water got here in the first place, is being deposited by asteroids. So, I mean, there is that. I would say that is not as bad as like what Ken Ham or other creationists propose, and that's that the Earth was like an egg. And then when the Earth flooded, it cracked like an egg and caused a whole bunch of water to come up from underneath that just disappeared, apparently, from the face of the Earth and from our local star system and everything. Like, I feel like the asteroids is at least a more rational conclusion to come to.
Yeah, because it's like where did the water go? Where did it go afterwards? I mean, was it deposited on Mars? Because we do know that, you know, asteroids hitting Mars, like some of those rocks got here to Earth, right? So it could have it could have happened in reverse, but there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence of a huge impact that's deposited water on the moon or on Mars. Like this, we just don't have that, right? So it's just one of those things. I'm like, man, once I went to the spiritual side of things, I realized something, because I was always saying that my definition of God, which is what I hear a lot from people today, my definition of God at that point was basically the absolute floor of the universe. You know what I mean? Which sounds weird. You know, the foundation of all being. That's what I used to say. Yeah, I mean, but then of course I ran into people who are actual professional philosophers. And they said, when you say the floor of all being, what is being? We haven't solved ontology yet. We haven't solved that yet. So what do you mean by the floor of all being? And I couldn't answer it. You know, so it was like, yeah, maybe my definition is kind of stupid. You know, if I'm gonna say it's the floor of all reality, the floor of all being. And we were like, well, you mean the floor of reality, like the Planck time? Yeah, I mean the Planck time, you can see, we can get to the Planck time, like we see particles coming in and out of the Planck time all the time. So are you saying that God is as particles? God is, you know, electrons and shit? I'm like, and quarks. I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, okay, but you can't, if you're gonna say God is quarks, like, I guess, but if you're gonna say God is quarks, do quarks have a will? Do they have a consciousness? And if I say no, if I say God is indistinguishable from anything in the universe, that's basically saying that there's no God at all. You know, and that's when I had to figure out, I'm like, oh, I'm an atheist. Because that's all I've been saying this entire time. You know, God is indistinguishable from anything else. You know what I mean? God is basically Spinoza. Spinoza's God. You know, the way that nature forms and develops itself. If I'm equating that with God, there's no God at all. You know, and I said, well, and that's how I figured out that, yeah, I'm an atheist.
Yeah. No, I mean that's an amazing journey right there. I mean, I appreciate how detailed you are. I don't know. So I interviewed Mezzo on Sunday, you know, doing the exact same thing, and I was like, so tell me about religion, how religion was integrated into your childhood, and how was it during your childhood? And he's just like, it was all right. And that was it. I mean, seems like Mezzo, but no, I really appreciate how detailed you were, because I mean, you know, going through that process right there, I feel like a lot of people go through similar processes. I know for me, at least, like I started questioning like what I believed, why I believed it. And I was watching debates, you know, something similar to what you did. Instead of watching like response videos and everything, I would just listen to debates. I would listen to both sides. And I mean, I found myself in the exact same position as you. Like the atheist would say something evidentially based, justified with empirical evidence and everything, and the religious people were like, I've got a book and it says no. You know, basically is what it comes down to. And so yeah, no, I totally sympathize with your process there. And did you find that like I know for me, at least, the hardest thing was actually admitting that I didn't believe in a God anymore, because of how I had been indoctrinated and how I had been taught that like atheism is bad, or that, you know, believing in God is like one of the normal things that people do. And I'm wondering if you kind of felt the same way, or was it more of a light switch kind of thing for you once you deconstructed that far?
Yeah, because the deconstruction journey took like 10 years probably. I mean, a very long time. You know, I started when I was like maybe 23 or 24, or actually started when I was 21 and didn't end until I was probably 31, my early 30s. And it was very hard, extremely difficult, very, very, very hard. You know, and that question, like you said, I know that light bulb was going off, but I was trying to shut it off, right? It's like how you said, I was trying to shut that light bulb off. And the main reason why is because I didn't want to lose the community. I did not want to lose the community. When I was in basic training, because I was in the Air Force, right? I was in the Air Force. So when I was in basic training, there's certain services you can go to. There's services for Muslims, but the biggest one, of course, was on Sunday, where everybody would just go to the church, local chapel. So I would go to that, but there was also the service for non-believers. There was a service for that on Sundays as well. And Phil, who I think he used to be on the Atheist Experience, but Phil, that's where I actually met him. He was there at basic training as well. So I would go to all these services.
Phil Ferguson?
I don't think it's Phil Ferguson. It's Phil with he's a black guy with hair like like poofy like this. He used to be on Atheist Experience, but
Oh, okay. I think I know who you're talking about. So sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of Phils apparently.
yeah. But I used to go to those services, right? And this was in a point where I realized that I didn't really believe anymore, but I was trying to stay in with some sort of community, right? So of course on that first Sunday, I went to the church. I tried to be there with be in communion with people and everything like that, because most of the people who were at basic training were, of course, atheists. Then I said, okay, I'm not atheist, Christian. Most people who are at basic training were Christian, of course. So then I said, you know what? I'll go to a non-believer service. Let me see if I more comfortable there. And of course I was. It was an amazing experience. And there were way more people who were non-believers than I thought. Yeah, I mean, I met a lot of Satanists too. I know there were so many Satanists in the military, but I met a lot of Satanists, and not theistic Satanists, of course, but I met a lot of them, and I was like, oh wow, it packed up a whole like arena of people. Packed up a whole arena of people, and I'm like, wow, it's this is way more of a community than I thought. There's a lot more people who don't believe than I thought, and there was someone else who was in my same basic training flight. That's what they call the groups over there, and instead of platoon, they call it a flight. But like in my same flight, there was someone there who was also not a believer, but I used to see him go to the churches on Sundays and everything like that. And when I saw him there, and I was like, hey, let's just go together to the service and everything like that. And he said, yo, Volsi, I'm keep you in on a little secret. He said, man, the only reason I've been going to church is because my wingman, or your battle buddy, he goes to church. So that's the only reason why I've been going. But he said, tell you the truth, I haven't believed in this since I was like a teenager. Like, it's all crap to me, right? And I was like, bro, I've been feeling like this for years now, and that's how me and him became wingmen to each other. So it's like, man, I finally had someone else who understood, because literally just about everyone in our group, in our flight, were Christians, basically everyone. So it was very, very isolating for a while until we found each other, and that's when, our dorm chief, because, we're all in dorms. The dorm chief just said it one day. He said, oh, no, I'm an atheist. And he didn't care. He just said it all right. And I'm like, oh, there's a third one. We're not alone. We're not alone, So this is one of those things where I was like, all right, finally, I'm not alone. And then when I got out of it, that's when I started really looking into communities online to find people who I can connect and be with, because letting go, the hardest part of letting go was not wanting to lose that community. I thought my parents would disown me. I thought my friends would stop talking to me. I thought all those things, right? Until I, one day, one of my friends actually caught me watching a video. It was a video on Fox Soul, and they were featuring black non-believers, black atheists on it. So I was watching that video, and one of my friends caught me watching it, and he was like, hey, what you watching? And I'm like, I'm just watching this about non-believers. And then he looked at it for a while. He was like, yo, bro, the non-believers is bringing up some good points, man. I've been feeling like that way for a while. And I was like, yeah, so I have a friend who's been feeling that way for a while too. Yeah, I mean, now, of course, all my other friends are still Christians and everything like that, but I was able to basically tell them that I don't believe anymore, and they were like, man, it's your journey. Your journey is your journey. We don't mind. I told my sisters first. I didn't tell my parents, but I told my sisters first. And of course, I know my sisters was gonna tell my parents, because my sisters are the type of people, they gossip with my mom and dad. You know what I mean? I'm the one in the family that doesn't gossip. I never have any new tea. You know what I mean? I never have any of those. I get that all from my sisters. But yeah, so they the one who told my parents, and of course that's how the whole family found out. But thankfully, my mom and dad were not upset or angry or wanted to disown me or anything like that. They were just saddened that I didn't believe anymore. But of course, they always say that I'm going to turn around and be a preacher one day and preach the gospel and bring more people to the kingdom, etc., etc. And I'm like, hey, y'all, unless Jesus come down himself, bro, it's just not happening, y'all. It's just not happening. I need some real evidence. You know what I mean? Me having a dream one day is not going to be enough. It's just not. you know, he's gonna have to come down himself and show me, you know, and until that happens.
Yeah, so basically they were like, it's just a phase. Don't worry about it. He'll be back in the pulpit soon. Earlier when you were talking about how at 16 you would preach a sermon, 17 you would preach a sermon and all that, I was just sitting here thinking, man, I've never preached a sermon, but I have been featured at a sermon as the angry atheist but you can find it on YouTube. They're up on like a giant screen. They have one of my videos playing, and it's like I'm the angry atheist for like, you know, the entire congregation. And so like that's as close to preaching as I've ever gotten. But
yeah. I mean, it's what's crazy is that I had a friend of mine, right? And we were both atheists. Like I was coming out of the religion, and that's when I met him. And we've been friends for like the past 10, 15 years. But he was already an atheist and I was just coming out of it. And we were talking one day and it was like, you know what? If it wasn't for our morals, we would probably be the biggest mega preachers right now. Because like when I preach before, I've had lots of charisma up there. You know what I mean? And I know exactly how to preach to get people into the seats. I know exactly what music to play in order to get people hyped up. I know exactly how all that it's going to work and go and organize, right? And I know exactly what image to put out there in order for me to not only get people in the seats, but also to get them donating. And I know enough about, you know, our economic reality in America, what to do, you know, what to get financing for in order for me to build up a church to make a lot of money. I know how to do all that, right? But I'll be faking it. Basically, I'll be faking it. And I don't have the moral capacity to do that. I just don't. I cannot lie, like blatantly lie to thousands of people over and over and over again and have it not affect me in some way. It's going to make me sick. I just can't do that. You know what I mean? And I said, if it wasn't for morals, I would be the biggest mega preacher hypocrite there is. There is, because let me tell you, if there were videos of the sermons that I did when I was younger, y'all will put me on a lot more stages, man. Because boy, let me tell you, I did a sermon one time on, you know, how David and Goliath is a story of basically anything. Basically, you can make David and Goliath to anything. You can make David and Goliath your a story of procrastination. You can make David and Goliath a story of addiction. You can make David and Goliath a story of depression. You know what I mean? And I'm saying that Goliath is your depression. And what did David do? He didn't back down from it. He took a rock and he threw it at David's head because he knew that God was with him. I'm telling you, don't get me into my preaching mode, boy. I was gonna get me into my preaching mode because, boy, I could do it. I could do it if I wanted to, but because of my morals, I never went down that path. Because I knew that I just can't do it. I can't be a person that's gonna fake it, make money, and then be out there just, you know, what I'm gonna do with it? Probably go, you know, buy some weed. What I'm gonna do? It's just like I can't do it, you know.
Oh no, yeah. See, I would go a different direction. I would probably do a sermon on what is it, Gideon, I believe, is a judge. I'd be like, all you nerdy fucks out there, you could be chosen by God too, okay? But just because of the fact that Gideon was like the least amongst them, and it's like, even if you're weak, God can choose you to do something great. And
that was gonna be my other sermon. I did a sermon on the last 7 words of Jesus too. Oh man, let me tell you, boy, I could. This is why Joel Osteen. This is why he's such a good motivational preacher because he just takes stories from the Bible and just essentially makes it into a motivational speaking service. That's all he does. That's all he really does. And you can do that with any story in the Bible. You can do that with Tower of Babel. You can do that with Jephthah. You can do it with Isaiah, with when he bought the fires down to in front of the priest of Baal. That story, you can do that with all of them. You know what I mean? And you can do that with Adam and Eve. You can make Adam and Eve a story about, sexual morality, if you want. You can say that when Eve was tempted by the apple, because the apple represents, the sin of the world, and one of the biggest sins of the world is sexual impurity, etc. I've done that before. Let me tell you.
She was convinced by the trouser snake to take a bite.
She's like, y'all saw how she was convinced by a snake, right? So you ladies out there, don't be convinced by that snake, because that snake is gonna get into you and they'll bite you. You already know what that snake does. Yeah, let me not.
Before I ask my next question, though, I do want to address the super chats that we got. A little while ago, Limited Light said, when I was that age, I was writing a question to Carl Sagan about 30 to 45 miles away, but I was still a theist. I believe that was back when you were talking about crap. Were you saying that
the
you
Carl
were,
Sagan
you were,
quote?
you were, yeah, the Carl Sagan quote. And then Limited Light followed it up with, it took me 1,000 years. Dang, dying and getting reincarnated messed me up with the point. Yeah, I saw that Limited Light said that he was making that joke in jest there. And then finally we've got Volsi's thoughts. One of us. Cue the champion song.
Google gobble, one of us.
Okay, so now as far as your story goes, we've deconstructed. You've come out to your family and everything like that, and I'm just wondering, like, did you find yourself to be like different in any kind of way, like your deeply religious self versus your newly atheist self, or even your current atheist self? Do you find that those are like two different people? Do you think that nothing's changed? Like, what does that look like for you?
Oh, definitely. When I first came out, remember how you were saying before how you were like the angry atheist on a stage, everything like that? Yeah, that was me. I was upset. I was an angry atheist, and the reason why is because you see how none of us likes getting lied to. None of us like getting lied to, right? Whenever we're lied to, we feel a betrayal, right? We feel all that betrayal, and that's what was going on when I first got out of it. I was like, I wasted about 25 years of my life. I believed in horrible, disgusting things about the LGBTQ community. Yeah, I mean, and I believed horrible, disgusting things about what a woman's place is, all of that, right? And it was all just crap. It was all bullshit. You know what I mean? And I was upset. I was pretty upset. I was one of those angry atheists. Yeah, I mean, I was one of those people where I would really tackle and take on. I was one of those, debate me, bro, I will destroy you and everything like that. Yeah, I was one of those guys. But then after a few years, one thing I always say to everybody: who you are at the age you are now is never gonna be who you are 10 years from now. You know what I mean? Like, who I was at 33 was not who I was at 23, and who I was at 23 is not who I was at 13. You're always gonna grow. You know what I mean? And who I was at 33 is probably not gonna be who I am at 43. I could change, you know what I mean? So it's always those things where you keep growing, right? So when I first came out of atheism, I saw that I was very amped up to destroy, the religious belief and everything like that. But then I started to calm down, to understand that a lot of these people are where I was before. I wasn't necessarily a terrible person, but I was indoctrinated in a certain way, just like how they were indoctrinated. You know what I mean? And there are people who do believe these things, right? Who do also believe in, in Jesus and God and everything like that. But they're not horrible people. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily have to believe in oppression of others in order for them to believe this. You know what I mean? And I had to figure that out, that, hey, a lot of my civil rights heroes, they were within the religion as well. You know what I mean? A lot of them. Rosa Parks was a Christian. Of course, the most famous one, Martin Luther King. You know what I mean? Baptist preacher. So they just view Christianity far differently than what the people around the time who were trying to suppress them viewed Christianity, which is another thing that, you know, we definitely got to talk about how Christianity operates in a white supremacist way in America. That's another thing. But I had to figure out that, you know what, there are ways to have conversations with these people, and even to have, you know, heated conversations, heated debates with them, and still respect them as a person, not try to come off as I'm trying to, you know, demean you, because I figured that that's what I was doing. I was trying to demean people, and that's just not nice. That's not who I am. And when I looked at myself when I first came out of religion as an angry person, as an angry atheist, I'm like, what am I so upset about? What am I angry about? Yes, I felt lied to, but did they consciously lie to deceive me? My parents were indoctrinated the same way I was, you know, and their parents were indoctrinated the same way their parents were, and their parents were indoctrinated that way because they were enslaved, you know. So I shouldn't be mad at the indoctrination. I shouldn't be mad at the people who indoctrinated me because they were indoctrinated. I should be mad at the fact that they were indoctrinated in the first place, and it denigrated our spiritual heritage that we got from Africa. That's the part that I should be upset about, not the people in of themselves, because they're indoctrinated the same way that I am. Now, people who are harming people, actively using this to harm people, yeah, I'm upset at them. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be upset at them. You know what I mean? The Kenneth Copelands of the world, I'm definitely gonna be upset at those people. You know what I mean? But for people who are just trying to, this is all they knew and just trying to live their lives, I'm not gonna be upset at them. I'm going to talk to them about it. I'm gonna say this is the harm that it causes. I'm gonna bring up, these are some contradictions in here, and you should think critically about it. And if you think critically about it and you feel that you can still believe this without any evidence at all, then that's your life. I'm going to leave you alone. I'm going to let you keep it. I've always told people that this is not something I'm going to take away from you, because for a lot of people, it's a coping mechanism. This is what they use to get through their lives. So I'm not going to take away your coping mechanism, but I am going to ask you to think critically about it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm also going to tell them that, listen, a lot of the reason why I think a lot of people still are in the belief is because they take the Christian belief or the Muslim belief or any other religious belief as part of their core identity. Like, this is who they are. You know, I think you've seen all the memes. I'm a Christian, nothing can shake my faith. All those, right? So they take it as this is their core personality, right? And if they lose that, they lose a part of themselves. And one thing that I've said is that when it comes to that, right, that type of thinking, don't think religion is who you are at your core. Religion, politics, these are all opinions that you hold. They're basically your books in a backpack, right? Your backpack is part of who you are, but those books, they can change out anytime. Yeah, I mean, you can change one textbook for another. And if one textbook becomes outdated, you're gonna throw it out. I mean, that's how it works. You're just gonna throw it out. So that's what I started to have those type of discussions with people. Tell them I'm not trying to take this away from you. I want you to think critically about it. And whenever I attack the contradictions and the harm that Christianity does, I'm not attacking you. Yeah, I mean, you are different from what this ideology is, because even though I'm gonna let you keep it, at the end of the day, you have to understand something. Christianity, at its core, is a supremacist ideology. It says that some people will get a reward for believing something and everyone else will be tortured. It says that there is a special magic people from the Levant 2,000 years ago, and you know the magic baby born from this certain special group had to be a virgin blood sacrifice for the entire world. That's what it teaches, right? So it's like, it's a supremacist ideology. Yeah, I mean, and what happens with supremacist ideology is that they always get extreme. You know what I mean? So there's harm to be caused there, but I'm not attacking you. I just want you to think critically about it. That's why I always tell everybody that I always speak to about it.
No, yeah, I think that's a good tactic. And, you know, I guess reflecting on my own sort of angry atheist period there, while we're similar in nature, I feel like you recognizing that, you shouldn't be angry at people that indoctrinated you. You should be angry at the fact that, your heritage was filled with just, forced indoctrination that kind of erased a little bit of that heritage that you had. Me, I guess I was never angry at my parents. What I was angry about was the fact that religion, I'd spent my life sort of cultivating a personality that was palpable for the religion, right? Like I would not say certain things, or I would be like, well, I've got to do this certain thing in order to get into the heaven, into the good place. I want to get to the good place, so I need to do this certain thing. And so my rebellion was more like, you know what? Fuck all of that. I will say whatever I fucking want to, and your whole prudish shit's not going to stop me from acting the way that I really want to act. So it's like I felt freer after that point to like actually be myself, to relay what my actual ideas were. So I'm glad that you were able to come to that realization, and you can integrate that into very positive conversations with people, because I know people, like religious people especially, they like to get their defenses up whenever you start questioning their faith, and they take it so personally whenever so here recently I've noticed this, that they take it very personally if you start like talking about how God raped Mary. Like if you say God raped Mary, they immediately clutch their pearls and they're like, don't you dare touch my God, kind of thing. And it's kind of crazy, and that's why sometimes I push it really hard, like, and I'm like, look, she was raped, just deal with it. And it's because of the fact that it challenges them in that way, and it gets them to clutch their pearls. And so I guess I still got not really angry part of me, but it's still that part of me that's like I want to cause a little bit of uncomfortableness,
unease.
Discomfort,
unease.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because I mean, I feel like that is the thing to shock people out of like some of these ridiculous beliefs, is causing that unease. And but I think that it's a great tactic to be like, I'm not trying to take your faith away from you, but your faith has a lot of rape in it.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that one question I like to ask, especially when we're on like when me and Black Atheist rants and everything, when we're on like these all Black panels, what we like to talk about when it comes to not believing anymore, we like to talk about, because a lot of times we get the questions on what did we lose, but we never ask the question of what did we gain, from leaving. And one thing I've always said is that I think I gained a lot of my humanity back. You know what I mean? Because one thing that happens is that, like I said, there are a lot of churches and everything like that that has a lot of mission trips. Like I went to a lot of mission trips and everything like that, and help people out. But a lot of the reason why I was doing that is because I felt it was my job. You know what I mean? And there's a difference between doing something because it's your job and doing something because it's the right thing to do when you genuinely want to help. Those are two different things. And my mission trips that I was going on, I was doing this because it's my job to do. This is what God called me to do. It's my job. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Did I really care about helping them out? That's something that I'm not sure if I was. Not only that, like I said, the ways that I believed about, women, they're subordinate to men, they're under men. God made us, that God made Eve from Adam's rib. They belong to me and everything like that. You know what I mean? So, and the thing is, I think what shocked me when I heard like the women in my life described wives as the property of their husbands. When I started hearing stuff like that, when it was like, oh, that's his wife, that's his property. When I started hearing those type of words, this is after I left the religion. I was like, wow, this is what I believed. I believed that a woman was my property. If she marries me, or if we're in a long-term relationship, she's mine. She belongs to me. She's my property. She doesn't need to be talking to anybody. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things that I really had to think of. And I think as when I got out of it, my compassion for people actually got higher. My my zeal for life, you know what I mean, when me want to live a fun, happy, good life, it got higher. My my empathy for those around me, it became higher because I realized something. There's no after this. This is it. This is all we get. After I pass away, my children will never see me again. I mean, that's it. All right. So if that's it, this is all we have. We should try our best to live live our lives the best way possible. Live our lives not just working hard, but having good work ethic, but enjoying it with each other, making sure that we all are loving each other as well, making sure that we're all kind to each other. I never understood this societal push to be a dick to everybody. I do not get it. I just don't get it. I know I'm rambling, but it's like until this day, I've never understood this societal push for everybody to be a jerk. Why? Why? I don't get it. Why not just be nice to people? You know what I mean? And that's just my thing. I think after I became after I left the religion, after I deconstructed, that's what I gained. I gained a zeal and a compassion and an empathy that I think I didn't have before, because I know that at the end of the day, I don't know what anyone else is going through. I could be driving on my way home and the person in front of me 3 miles down the road gets into an accident and never sees his family again. Yeah, I mean, so when I figured that out and I said, this is the one life we have to live, I'm gonna try to live it the best way possible. I'm gonna try to live it the kindest and most empathetic way possible, which is why I advocate for the politics that I do. It's why I advocate for the social policies that I do, the social beliefs that I do, to see everybody as equal, to protect children, to protect those without power. That's why I do it. Yeah, I mean, that's why I believe it, because I want everybody to live as well as I do, and because you don't get anything after this, you just don't.
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful. To be quite honest, looking at it like that, do you find? I get a couple final questions, but before that, do you find that it's difficult for you to engage with people if they immediately come off hostile or condescending or anything like that, or do you give the energy that you get?
Sometimes I give the energy that I get. I do. But there are times where I'm like, all right, this I can. There are two reasons. There are two things, right? There are people who are being hostile just to be hostile. Just because you're on the opposite side, they're gonna be hostile to you, and that's it. I go through that a lot, especially when I do my political streams. You know, there are people who are gonna get on the phone who just get on the phone yelling. You know, I mean, just shouting, yelling, all that other good stuff. There's people who get on the phone and just do that, right? Those folks, I think you've seen me do. I just hang up. I'm not talking to you. Whatever. I'm not gonna hang up. I'm not talking to this guy. But there are people who do come across as, you know, ready to argue, ready to hostile. But I do know the reason is because of they have the defenses up. Yeah, I mean, they're thinking that I'm being attacked, so I got to make sure that I'm in a mode to attack back. Which is why I think you see me do it before as well, which is why I say, all right, bro, slow down. I'm not trying to hit you. I'm not trying to attack you, bro. But y'all, slow down. Think about what I'm saying for a minute. You know what I mean? This is something that I've started to do where I've started to integrate. I start to say that, hey, y'all, relax. Take 5 seconds. Be silent for about 5 seconds. You know, that's what I do. I said, just be silent for about 5 seconds. Because I found out what that does is that when you're just quiet for 5 seconds, 5 seconds is actually a long time. You know what I mean? So when you're silent, people actually they reset. You know, they reset themselves and like, all right, cool. Now let's continue the conversation. So when I see hostility on both ends, if they're just yelling and not answering any question or not engaging in the conversation, okay, you just hear they just yell. But if they're actually answering the conversation, but they're trying to push more things onto there, they're just being defensive. And I can talk to those people. It's not bad. And we can end up having a good conversation, even if it gets heated.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Any kind of positive conversation that you can pull out of that, I think is going to be awesome. Now,
Mhm.
my final two questions are kind of retrospectives a little bit, and the way I formulate this first one is just basically if you could send a message or talk to your former religious younger self, what is something that you would tell that person?
There's going to be an internet currency that comes out around 2012 or 2013. It's gonna be worth $2. Buy 1,000 of those, all right, and just wait. Just wait.
Hold on to that USB, motherfucker.
Yeah. But besides that, I would say your questions aren't crazy. That's one different thing I would say. Your questions aren't crazy. All right. So keep looking into them because, back to my religious self, I had tons of questions, tons. But I put them to the back of my head because I thought they were crazy. I thought that I would just get the answer one day. I thought they were sinful. So I would tell my young self that your questions aren't sinful. They aren't crazy. There's a reason you're asking them, and keep on asking. All right. I would always say that. Keep on asking, keep on discussing, keep on, researching. There's a reason you have those questions, but it's your journey. Just keep it moving, keep it going.
That's fantastic. And then my final question for your deconversion, the deconversion stuff is, what would you tell your newly atheist self, that angry atheist that was, pretty upset, over being indoctrinated, being lied to? Now that you've come to some clarity, what would you tell that younger version of yourself?
Woosah. Take a deep breath, bro. It's all right. It's okay. The people who lied to you, they weren't doing it because they wanted to deceive you. They're doing it because they were indoctrinated. All right. So a lie is to be willfully deceitful. Like they're lying to you in order for them to get something out of you, in order for you to believe something that's untrue, and they know it's untrue. That's not what these people were doing. All right. So woosah. Take a chill pill. Understand that these people are just as human as you are. All right? And that's what I understand now, that they're just as human as I am. And who knows? I could be wrong. I could be wrong about something, right? But just because I'm on the right side of history now doesn't mean that you get to treat everybody else like dirt. It doesn't mean that. So being an atheist doesn't make you a kinder person. It doesn't make you a more rational person. It just means you don't accept the God belief. In order for you to become a kind of rational person, you have to know yourself. You have to read. You have to actually interact with people. You gotta touch grass, So go out there, touch grass. It's okay to not believe anymore. You're not gonna lose your community, but you don't have to be upset. Just woosah.
Woo fucking saw for sure. All right. Well, that it's been a great journey along your deconstruction route, but just I guess to talk a little bit of shop here right at the very end as we're wrapping up. What is your go-to like argument for somebody that calls in and wants to try to prove God or has a problem with you not believing in God? Like, do you have like a go-to like verse or like a go-to example of why like religion is ridiculous?
Oh yeah, same thing. I always say. Resist, who's in my comments, Mick Time, Dave, OWW, shout out to y'all. They've all seen me run the same thing, and it always works like a charm. If I told you I had $10 billion in the Bahamas, and if you quit your job and follow me there, and I'll give you $500 million, will you do it just because I say so? And 90% of the time, they always say no. They always say, well, I will need this. I will need that. I will need this. I will need that. So you need evidence to believe something. All right. So if you need evidence to believe my claim, why do you think I wouldn't need evidence to believe yours? If another person's testimony isn't good enough for you to believe them, why should your testimony be good enough for me to believe you? Think about all that. That's what I always say. That's what always my go-to, because you're not going to believe. We all operate off of evidence, all of us. The only thing that you don't operate off of evidence is your religious beliefs, and you should ask yourself why.
No, yeah, I think that's perfect. That's a great, sort of, I guess it would be an epistemic test for them, right? Like how do you develop your knowledge, kind of thing. And quick question: where do you stand on the mythicism thing? Because I know Barr, he's mythicist. Be Easy, he's mythicist too. And I'm just kind of wondering where do you sit in all that?
Me, I would say like I'm half and half. The Jesus of the Bible didn't exist. That Jesus didn't exist. The one that was going around healing people, walking on water, feeding people with 2 loaves of bread, dying and then rising from the dead like a zombie, and then flying to the air like Superman. That Jesus didn't exist. All right, we know that's BS. That Jesus didn't exist. However, was there a guy possibly named Yahshua going around being an apocalyptic preacher, saying that he's going to rule the kingdom one day and the current kingdom will fall, and therefore he became popular enough for the Romans to recognize him, and the Romans sent their own FBI agents to go ahead and take this guy out because he's an enemy of the state? Yeah, that one is likely more real than the one that we get from the Bible. But I've always said I have no problem with Jesus as a guy existing. Even not even just as a guy, but basically various versions of Jesus that got molded into one. You know what I mean? Because I think that's happened in history before. I think that's what King Arthur is. I think King Arthur is like 6-7 different people that got molded into one. I think that's what that was. So I have no problem with Jesus being the same type of thing, right? So I'm not really a mythicist in saying that Jesus never existed at all. Just that we begrudgingly accept that Jesus existed because we have no way to show that he didn't, and we have Paul, Tacitus, etc., etc. So Jesus as a guy, or maybe multiple guys, is likely, but the one we see in the Bible, no, that Jesus never existed. That's what I always say.
I feel like I could turn you on this, and anytime that you want to dive deeper into those particular bits of that, if you ever have any interest in that at all, I'm totally an open book, but just be warned, I will convert you.
I have no problem being converted. Yeah, if the evidence is against Jesus as a guy existing, then yeah, he never existed. You know what I mean? But the Bible one, the one we see in the Gospels, that one never existed. Hell no. But
I feel like that's where all atheists can really kind of come to an agreement about, is that the gospel version of Jesus definitely did not exist, and that's why. But I mean, I think that's why two atheists having a conversation over like the historical Jesus, that's the only kind of good conversation that can be had there. And I tell this to people if they're ever trying to interact with me, like a theist, like a Christian that's trying to interact with me on whether or not Jesus existed. I usually end up being like, look, this question is out of your depth, because you are still illusioned with this idea that the magical form of Jesus exists. And so like, we've got to like deconstruct that first before you can even reach this other deeper level here of like historical research and everything. I mean, if I can tell that the person is in like good faith and is not just trying to be a dick, that's generally the route that I go for them. And but if they're trying to be a dick, I'll just fucking cook them real quick, on the question. But yeah, like I said, anytime you want to talk about it, I'm an open book. If you never want to talk about it, I totally don't. I don't care. Like I'm not going to be disappointed or anything. I'm just saying, like, I'm here if you want to talk about it. But there is Oceanus Helios, who says, I'm a mythicist because I simply hold the character of Jesus to the same standard I would any other proposed figure in history.
Yeah.
So Yeah, and I totally get that. I feel like I do the same thing too. But I do want to caution anybody out there that, like, if there's somebody like an atheist out there that isn't willing to go as far as to like say he never existed at all. I mean, meet people where they are, especially on this topic, because like we don't need to be like fighting with each other on that particular thing. Like it for Volsi, for you and I to like interact and like really combat the Christian nationalism that's out there, the racism that's out there, the problems that we see with this administration, we don't even need to breach that topic. We don't even need to have that conversation. But I think that one day I will turn you, by the way.
Yeah, you probably will, because right now I'm on the side of more likely than not, simply because of like Paul and Tacitus, which is why whenever I talk about it, I'm like, yeah, he likely did. You know what I mean? But I know that Be Easy has brought this up before, because there might be issues with Paul, there's issues with Tacitus, and Paul is doubtful as well. So the only thing that we have is Paul meeting James, the brother of Jesus. And did Paul himself exist? That's a big question. You know what I mean? Now, I know some historians say, yeah, Paul himself existed because we have letters, but then we know half the letters are untrue. Now we have to research the other half. Are the other half true or not? And if it gets to 10 years where we say, okay, a lot of these letters from Paul aren't true, and we only have 3 genuine ones, yeah, maybe he's not real, So yeah, I'm all open ears. I have no problem with Jesus existing. I'm just on more likely than not.
Right. Do you like reading books?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Have you heard of a book called Jesus Outside the New Testament?
Nah. Who wrote that one?
It's Robert Van Voorst. He's a retired New Testament scholar. Highly suggest you read the section on Tacitus there.
Okay. Because I know what's his name? Be Easy has brought that up before too, where there's lots of issues with Tacitus, even where he says that Jesus was this person and that person. Yeah, so I know there's issues there, right? But whenever I speak to Christians, when I speak to Christians, just for the sake of the conversation, I'm like, okay, let's say Jesus existed. Now let's talk about the powers. You know what I mean? That's what I always
I take that tactic too. I definitely do. If you're, and a really easy read for like mythicism is Jesus from Outer Space. And if you like audiobooks, my wife actually voiced the audiobook for that. So
awesome.
You'll be able to hear her read it. Yeah, she voiced it, and then I had to edit it, and that's why it took 1.5 years to get it published. But yeah, and now we're doing the same with Richard Carrier's next one. But but if you're looking for like a Tacitus thing, I would definitely read the Robert Van Voorst book. That one's and that one covers all the external evidence for Jesus. And but he comes to a pretty valuable conclusion there on that one. But yeah, I'm having to hold it in because like I don't want to. Like you're getting the info, like I'm having to hold in the info dump on like Paul and all, because I think Paul existed, but I think that there's very specific reasons why Paul doesn't prove that Jesus existed. And
because he never actually met him.
Well, right. Yeah, that's the one big thing. Definitely. I do have a playlist of mythicism stuff in case you get bored, at work one day or something. Like
send that to me.
Okay, I definitely will. But it's also one of the prompts that I run all the time whenever I do the TikTok lives. But okay, so just kind of wrapping up here. I just want to say that I really appreciate like your live streams that you do, and I know that we need to privately get together so that we can work on that bi-directional like TikTok to the phone lines sort of thing there. And we'll definitely get together sometime soon so that we can set you up with that, because it's a really easy setup. You got to be able to mentally visualize it in the correct way. And sometimes it can be a bit daunting and confusing. So I could definitely walk you through that. And was there anything that I didn't ask that you were hoping would come up, or anything that you need to sort of talk about before you go?
I can't even think of another to tell you the truth. I think you asked
Sorry, Volsi, I think your mic's cutting in and out. I don't know if it's just me. Oh. Oh, sorry. Your mic is starting to robot or something.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I think you're back.
Uh-oh. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep. I can hear you now.
Everything you just said. Repeat.
Yeah, everything you said after we
Bro, I
need to
can't hear
hook
you.
up soon. Oh. Everything's good on my. I don't know why I'm talking right now.
Godless, I can't hear you. I'm not sure if it's mine or it's yours, but I can't hear you.
I don't know if you could check the chat. Hold on.
I'll go to his line.
Let's see. I message. Oh, can't hear you yet. Are you able to hear me? Yes, I can hear you.
Rutro.
My levels are coming through.
Okay, so people in the comments are saying they can hear both of us, but I just can't hear
Yeah.
you.
That's weird.
That's odd.
All right, that's weird. I'm not sure why I can't hear you. Let me see what's the reason for that. Okay.
I think this is a divine reason for maybe us going too long. I talk too much.
My mic's back in.
Okay, can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you. I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you. Not sure why that is. Yeah, I'm really sorry, guys. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know why I can't hear him. I have no clue.
Tell him to drop out and come back in. Will that work?
Okay, yeah, I can repeat the last thing I said. What I said was that you pretty much asked me everything. Just want to know if I'm allowed to. I do have an event coming up in June. Okay, so I can go ahead. All right, yeah. So in June I do have the Black Atheist, Agnostic, and the Black Atheist, Agnostic, Skeptics, and Humanist Cookout. The Bash Cookout is coming in June. It will be on the second week of June, Saturday, June the 13th. The park just sent me the contract a few hours ago, so I'm signing up that contract. I'm going to rent the pavilion. It's going to go down here in the Central Florida area, in the Orlando area. We ain't gotta go to Disney World or SeaWorld, y'all. We ain't gotta go doing none of that. All right. We're all adults. So y'all go ahead and come on down. I'll have food, I'll have drinks. Bar say he's coming down. And as you all know, Bar is a rapper and he is going to be performing some of his music. So I do hope you all can come down. If you are a Black atheist, agnostic, skeptic, or humanist, come on down and hang out with us and we'll have a good time.
Are colonizers allowed to come?
I can't hear Godless yet, but he's gonna tell me what to do next. The colonizers are allowed to come.
Yeah,
I mean, if
that's
you
what I.
if you're the spouse or significant other of one of them, then yeah, I'm not gonna stop you from coming. You know what I mean? But this one is more of of a black event for now. But definitely, you know, what I mean, when we come up with more conferences and everything like that, we'll expand, of course.
Talk about
Oh man, I'll colonize a lot to come. That's
Uh,
hilarious. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm gonna go ahead and get you the information, the flyer, and I'll put it on. We'll get it put on your website. Hey, I appreciate that. I really do, and you know, we'll see who can come out. I hope we get plenty. Definitely hope we get plenty. Yeah, sure.
Volsi here is the MC for the Rocket City Reason, or one of the MCs. Sidney Davis Jr. is the other one, but we will be having Rocket City Reason in October, October 23rd through 25th. If you would like to go and get tickets, go to rocketcityreason.com. You'll be able to see Volsi there the entire weekend. We've got an Alabama barbecue, we've got a drag show, we've got a full day of panels. We're going to have a live line show that Saturday night, and we've got the US Space and Rocket Center on Sunday. So definitely come down come from the left and the right, any other direction that you're going to come from, to Rocket City Reason in October. And I just want to give a quick thank you to Volsi over there for being the MC for one, filling in for Chris Mallard, who had scheduling conflicts. I really appreciate you coming in clutch for us. And I want you to be able to tell everybody right before we leave out here, because of the technical problems, and I obviously talk too much, but I want you to tell everybody where they can find you and everything like that here on the tube and on TikTok and just anywhere else. You just feel free to shill yourself there, Volsi.
All right. Yeah, I was watching through my phone, so I was able to hear everything you said. But yeah, so you can find me everywhere at Volsi Thoughts. My YouTube channel should be, I think, is linked in the comments and description. I've also been commenting, so you guys can find my comments and you'll be able to find me. Volsi Thoughts on TikTok. It's also that on Instagram and on Threads. If you're using Threads, I don't use Twitter as much, or Elon apartheid's Nazi site. I don't use that as much anymore. So you can find me on all those three, and I'm on Facebook as well. My name on there is B Jerome Volsi, which is my actual name. So you find me on there, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram and Threads. Volsi Thoughts on all of them, and I hope to see you guys there. And I appreciate y'all.
All right, everybody, we're going to go on ahead and head out, and definitely go follow Volsi in all the places. And I just followed Volsi over there on Threads. I did not realize that I was not following him, and that was a mistake, obviously. So I'm gonna go and do all of that kind of stuff. Y'all follow Volsi, and we will see you guys at Rocket City Reason. RocketCityReason.com. Go there, check it out. But we'll see you at Rocket City Reason later on this year. And always end this way. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.